I'll welcome officers from Australian Livestock Export Corporation Limited, otherwise known as LiveCorp. Senator Rhiannon.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I've been advised that the MLA and LiveCorp were crucial players in the industry government working group that developed the SCAS regulatory framework. Considering the recent developments in Bahrain and Pakistan, will you be suggesting any changes to improve animal welfare standards?
Thanks, Senator. My name's Rolly Nipa. I'm the chairman of LiveCorp. Yes, that's correct. We were heavily involved in the original phases of LiveCorp, of the SCAS system, and considerable work was done with the department through the working groups at that particular time. Our responsibility, I think, once that had been up and running, then falls into the implementation phase, which is a totally different picture. To answer your question about whether there's improvements to animal welfare, we're currently undertaking a review of the export standards, and anything that is likely to come up through that process will then reflect on SCAS if it's needed.
So in working to assist exporters refine their practices and processes under SCAS, have you identified any particular frustrations or barriers to exports meeting their obligations?
I'll let my CEO answer that one. He's more intimately involved on a day-to-day with the activities with exporters. We have a program within LiveCorp to aid and assist our exporters in developing their SCAS systems, to refine them, make them more efficient where possible, and we do that on a day-to-day basis with MLA, but I'll ask Sam Brown, my CEO, to answer me in more detail.
Thank you, Senator. Sam Brown, CEO of LiveCorp. Through the Live Export program, which LiveCorp invests, is the vast majority of where this work is done. The key areas where we work with exporters is through helping with the interpretation of SCAS, of course, gap analysis work, technical handling and training materials, but you know, with exporters, there are a range of challenges from time to time, depending on customers and countries.
So, do you see any tension between LiveCorp's aims of improving the live export industry's economic performance, while looking out for the welfare of animals subject to export, which you say you're committed to?
No, I don't see any conflict at all. I think they both go hand in hand. Without the strong economic performance, we can't provide animal health and animal welfare outcomes, and vice versa. So I personally believe they both go hand in hand, and a strong business can conduct the systems according to what's required by the regulator.
So I just want to also ask about the information that you make available, because looking on your website, there's a report, some of the information is still not available. And last estimates, LiveCorp representatives promised that your annual operating plan would be publicly available after the June 2012 board meeting. When you go to your website, it requires a password to access, when I just looked at it recently. And so interested, do you plan to change this? Because it appears that there's a failure to be transparent.
I take your question there very much to heart. We know our website is very much out of date. We're a fairly small organisation of 3 or 4, and with the current workload that we have at present, it's been one of those things that's gone on the back burner. There is a review currently underway. The board's requested that our website be updated and be made much more friendly, and that process is in place now. The AOP, the annual operating plan, is a plan that the company works to ensure that we commit our levy revenue that comes in from our exporters in a planned, coordinated way, and that plan is signed off by all the exporters, and it's consistent with our strategic plan. And our decision has been in the past and remains at present that the strategic plan is on the open website and will be, but the AOP is a working document for inside the company.
So you do have a commitment to being open about what you're doing?
We do.
So I was interested because I understand that there's a Four Corners program on Monday about the live export industry, and you've declined to be interviewed, and nobody from LiveCorp will be interviewed for that program?
That's correct. I think that's correct, Sam.
Yeah, that's correct.
Why is that the case? Wouldn't that be an opportunity to put your case?
LiveCorp's a service company, and it's not a company that makes the decisions of the industry. We provide the assistance to the industry, and we feel very plainly that it's up to the industry to answer those questions, not LiveCorp and the service company.
But surely your operating plan is critical and should be made public, and this would have been an opportunity to do that. I mean, effectively, you're part of the industry. It's not just that you service the industry, you are part of the industry. So wasn't this a good opportunity to state the case?
The annual operating plan is made available to the department. It is made available to the Minister in confidence. And as I said, it's consistent with our strategic plan, and it's an internal working document which is reviewed regularly and changed regularly in keeping with that strategic plan. So it is a working document, and we do not want to be held tightly to that particular document. We've got to achieve everything that's in there.
So you don't have plans to release it at any stage? You don't
not
think
at this stage.
No.
You
don't think that should be released?
No, not at this stage.
There is a shift in international markets to more chilled meat, like we're seeing China as well as much of Asia increasing their demand for chilled and frozen meat. Is this something that you consider in terms of, you've obviously got a certain mission statement under which you operate, but there is these shifts in international markets. It's very important for our rural producers. Are you making an assessment of that shift? So our cattle exporters and other rural producers aren't at a disadvantage by not giving more support to that international trade?
Senator, that question's probably better directed at MLA, which is the organisation which supports the producers. We're certainly aware of those shifts. Anecdotally and traditionally, the live export market tends to stimulate interest in Australian product, and we have seen the box beef trade come in quite strongly in many of the markets. In the Middle East, a lot of the markets there are supplied by box beef. It's because of the reputation, I think, of Australian product. And that product reputation is brought about by the livestock export trade. But the main thing with the live export trade and the processing industry in Australia is that we are in competition with each other. And therefore, from a producer perspective, producers get a better price for their product while there's that competition. Without that competition, then producers only have one avenue for the sale of their product.
So as a member of the Industry Government Implementation Group, did you discuss the sheep incident in Bahrain?
I'll refer that question to Sam, who's on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, through the IG working the group, the issues and updates were provided on the status of that vessel in question.
And you say updates were provided. Beyond receiving information about it, was an assessment made about the implications this has for the live export trade and how you should respond to it?
The IG was just. It was for updates. Obviously, there were other groups within the department and the exporter that were tasked with making the decisions and the assessments that were forming the decisions between the commercial parties, being the exporter and the department. And did you have any role at all in SCAS being in the shipment ending up in Pakistan and Pakistan becoming part of SCAS? Look, through the live export program, we provide, as we do to all markets, assistance in the providing advice as new markets come online or in existing markets. We provide technical support through LEP staff or consultants for a point of discharge and transportation, feedlot management, handling, and these sorts of guides, and those services were provided.
About Pakistan?
To Pakistan, yes.
And so how did it happen so quickly, considering for other countries it's been quite a lengthy process to bring them into the SCAS system? With Pakistan, it's happened in a matter of days. How could that occur?
Well, Senator, as you've heard from the department, the exporter has, as many other exporters do, have long-standing relationships with various markets. We do compete in a global market where some markets may go cold and be receiving livestock from other origins. And if the market fundamentals turn, that Australia becomes of interest again. So a lot of exporters have long-standing relationships with markets that could be considered dormant. So I'm not aware or have any specific knowledge of the relationships that were in existence prior to that with the Pakistani importer. But it should be no surprise that some of these exporters are well aware of the infrastructure that exists in countries and its status.
So it was actually an enormous failure, though, because the SCAS system has been set up for Pakistan, but then in terms of how the animals have been treated, showed that the system didn't work.
I think LiveCorp is not in a position to comment on the regulatory framework.
Yes, no, I appreciate that.
We've discussed this with the department. LiveCorp's not involved in the regulatory framework or its compliance.
So Dr O'Connell, the Minister has promised the investigation on the 28th of September, yet I understand from you that it took the department until the 29th of October to write to the exporter asking for information on which it will base the investigation. I mean,
the department people have just completed the query.
Yes, well, I was just wondering if you could explain.
Happy to take a question on notice if you... Happy to take a question on notice.
My intention is in the program is to finish at 5:20, but we'll go with you to 5:20. Then Chris, send the back and have the last 5 minutes, so we'll be 5 minutes behind each way through for each. So I'll give you the wind up. Well, 20 past 5, we'll go to Senator Back.
So, as Dr O'Connell, would you be able to answer that because we still have some time?
No, I don't have the facts at my fingertips.
Right, okay.
I have to take that on notice. But LiveCorp is not involved in that, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to return to the issue that I was just exploring with you about the shift that is occurring with a decrease in the live export trade and the increase in chilled meat. I'm just trying to understand, considering LiveCorp has a specific objective, on your board, do you make an assessment? Is this something that you're discussing, that while you have a responsibility in terms of live exports, but there's something very significant occurring? Could you share with the committee how you're responding to that shift?
No, yes, I can reply to you, but on the board, Senator, we do not discuss the state of play of the red meat industry of Australia. LiveCorp board is there to represent the interests of the exporters and to look after their needs, and that's where our financial levies are put in. There is another organisation that you will probably be aware of, RMAC. Our industry organisation, ALEC, sits on that committee, and we appear before that committee occasionally and talk through bigger red meat industry issues. We would take, as LiveCorp, we would take our guidance from the industry organisation, ALEC, who sets the policies of our industry, and from a LiveCorp perspective, we implement those policies wherever we can.
Thank you. Could I just, so running out of time, but just again, you've set out very clearly there your role in the industry, who you represent. again, why didn't you do the interview for Four Corners? I just didn't feel that that was explored enough, considering you said you're committed to scrutiny and to being transparent.
Yeah, Senator
But
Rhiannon is allowed to ask any question she likes.
Senator, it's a decision that has been made that the industry spokespeople in this particular event will be the Livestock Exporters Association, ALEC, and LiveCorp is being a service company, not involved in the regulatory side of this whole episode, not involved in the decision making in Bahrain or in Pakistan, can add very little to that process.
But was that decision made by the board or by yourself or by the CEO?
It's made by a number of people in cohorts. It's the industry in general has appointed a spokesperson for this particular issue.
But even though you can't speak about Pakistan and Bahrain, as you said, you're there to represent the live export industry, which is in considerable crisis at the moment, considering not just what's happened in Pakistan, but because of the export, the standing of the Australian dollar and sort of the pressure within Australia for animal welfare to be more respected and implemented. The industry is under so much pressure. Did you make the decision in the context that it was... why did you make the decision? On what basis did you make the decision not to speak? What were you judging, considering you are so much part of the industry?
As I said, Senator, within the industry, the communication decisions that we've made at this stage is that the spokesperson will be from the Australian Livestock Exporters Council, ALEC, and LiveCorp would not be making any statement. That's all I can add.
Senator, I might just... it's maybe worth explaining that LiveCorp is not doesn't represent the industry. It's not a representative body. It's essentially a service body, so it doesn't represent the industry as such. You go to the export ALEC for that function.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, but it's very much part of the industry. But thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.